it's not about self-assessments anymore. Enough with the self-assessments. They need to go. So it's about objective data, validated data. It's about what does research say about this?
This podcast is a product of Vive, where we unlock sustainable businesses. Produced by Amplitude Ventures, your partners in early stage venture building.
Hi, and welcome to Business as Unusual. I'm Sara Fossum, founder of Vive, and for the past 10 years, I've been working and learning in the field of sustainable business, trying to understand what it really looks like and what it could be. Along the way, I've had some honest and thought-provoking conversation with people across industries. These conversations has been about real challenges, but also the huge opportunities in doing business differently. And too often, sustainability is treated as a compliance issue and something you have to do rather than something that can actually create value. But when it is approached the right way, sustainability can really drive optimization, reduce risk, and open entirely new ways of thinking about value, both economically, socially, and environmentally. And that's what this podcast is about. So Business as Unusual is a space to explore how we rethink business, not just to meet targets, but to build companies that make sense for the long run. We'll talk to people with a range of perspectives who are navigating this space and trying to make change. Today, I'm really excited to have Elisabet Bøe joining. And Elisabet and I met at Arendalsuka a couple of years back. Where we were discussing both the challenges and opportunities of sustainable business. And I'm very looking forward to our talk today. But first of all, welcome, Elisabet.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for having me. I feel honored.
Thank you. So I thought, let's just start at the beginning. So you have been working, you have a long experience within sustainability, and you've been working across energy, hydrogen, but also a lot with sustainability data. And your latest role was in Terra, where you were the CEO, and now you're gone on a new adventure that I'm really excited to hear more about. But let's start at the beginning.
Yes, I tried to count the years, so to speak, here the other day, and I think all in all, I've been working with, if you want to label it sustainability, I've been working with sustainability for 18 years now. So it's been a while. Almost 2 decades, and seeing how this label or concept has developed has been something of a journey in itself. But I don't think really that sustainability was something that I just got into or discovered at some point. It's just ideas about I think resource efficiency, fair, democratic distribution of resources. I've always had that concept or those ideas with me, actually from my childhood years. But I think being perhaps a bit more than average action-oriented about things is definitely something that comes from growing up in an entrepreneurial family and environment. So my parents were entrepreneurs, and my brother has been an entrepreneur. So yeah.
Wow. So it runs in the family.
It runs in the family. I've never been afraid of a bit of uncertainty and going against the current. And
That's
basically,
so important.
yeah, basically doing what I can, using what I've got to try to make things better.
Yeah. Did you always knew that you were gonna be an entrepreneur yourself, like growing up in that environment?
Maybe it's just that, I don't know about anything else. Perhaps that's more how I would put it. I think I just discovered quite early on that I wanted to, not necessarily take the you know, the ordinary path, ordinary way forward. I wanted to build something for myself, because that's always something that has attracted me, to build something, to develop something, and kind of see it grow. Uh, Potentially, I'm a bit of a restless soul, so that is that is also something. But yes, I think I always kind of knew.
But so how did you like at the start of your career, if you can start there, like your background, your studies, and
Yes. My studies, I don't know, even if you perhaps if you look at my CV, it might look very intentional and planned. But it was a little bit of everything in there. I've always loved languages, literature, cultural studies. But I always felt that I wanted to do something on a societal level. Like, I want to bring about change somehow. Working with one task in one organization for a long, long time have, just never appealed to me. So I wanted to try to put together an educational background that really put me in a position where I could use all my resources and abilities to bring about change. But so it's been a little bit of languages, a little bit of law, a little bit of social studies, and then I finally landed on a Master of Management at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology in Trondheim.
and then you went on to work within hydrogen and energy.
Yeah, actually, the first job that I got was very much self-made. I kind of, when I first started looking for a job after I finished university, there was not much to choose from in terms of sustainability. So I decided to create my own workplace. So I founded, the world's tiniest consultancy. It was just me. And it was a bit of a coincidence, really, because when I wrote my master thesis, I came into contact with Standard Norway. This was a time in 2007, 2008, where ISO 26000 was being shaped. So a voluntary standard for social responsibility for businesses and organizations. And I just kind of volunteered to that expert committee. And I said that, hello, I'm a student, still writing my thesis. Would you like to have an extra member of your committee? So they welcomed me with open arms. And that was a little bit kind of the first start. So I got into contact with a lot of people and organizations that eventually needed consultancy assistance
Yeah,
in their efforts to kind of adapt the standard to their organization.
that's so cool. It's very inspirational, and also to see like where you started and kind of where it takes you next.
Yes, absolutely. And it's action is always the best way, because once you get started, there's always new doors opening, and one thing leads to another, and suddenly your calendar is full, and you learn so much as you go. Didn't make much money though. So eventually, when I started a family and, things, life happens, then I just had to make a few choices in terms of this is not sustainable in an economic sense. Just running a very small consultancy and making it kind of from month to month. So, but then I started actually, perhaps the most tangible result from that period, working for 5 years as an independent, was I think it counted more than 50 businesses in a network that I started of early stage businesses working with corporate social responsibility in a systematic way.
Yeah, definitely. And you must have gotten a lot of different perspectives on, I can imagine a lot of different industries and seeing a lot of different ways in which companies were working with this or what challenges they had. And did you see any common challenges that were kind of evident in all industries?
Yes, and it's often a tale of the time, because what they struggled with back then was usually the same issues across all industries and companies. Some, of course, more substantial issues with the bigger companies, with higher ambitions and everything, and more resources. But it was usually the same. But then again, if you fast forward 18 years, it's usually it's a lot of the same issues, actually. It's about, what are the metrics? What are we looking at here? This, sustainability, is this just about reporting? Is it just about extra effort, or can we kind of reap some rewards here? Are there any opportunities for us? So, but I think, and as I said, one thing leads to another. This has just been a series of, my first job led to opportunities to go into the county administration, which in Sogn og Fjordane, which was basically just a more stable job, but where I also got a lot of freedom to work with businesses, climate change, energy issues, from a very local perspective. And that's where I kind of came into this, how can we, we have the natural resources, but we're very inefficient in the way we just export it. We don't refine. We're a country with a lot of natural resources, and within energy, we're exporting it. We use a lot of it for industry purposes, etc., etc. And now we have electrification going on in the transport sector, for instance. But history shows us that we're very much kind of exporting from a local perspective all this energy. So how can we refine it and then potentially reap some rewards, both when it comes to climate change and reducing emissions, but also stimulate local industry in terms of refining energy locally, developing these value chains more locally. So that's where I came into hydrogen and battery technology, looking at how our transport system and energy systems are interconnected. And
Yeah. And I mean, like in these days, this is more relevant than ever.
so, and even, this is, work in progress, because what we started in hydrogen, the hydrogen project in Sogn og Fjordane back in 2015, it's still a work in progress, because now one of Norway's biggest industry clusters on hydrogen is located in Florø, a coastal city in old county of Sogn og Fjordane. And I think it's more than 50% of all funding of hydrogen projects in Norway go to that cluster.
Yeah.
So it has an effect, but
Yeah.
we're still kind of waiting for infrastructure changes. It needs to be viable, both
Yeah.
from an economic perspective, technological perspective, and environmental, obviously.
No, and it's so dependent on so many different actors, and they're all kind of working together. So, yeah, it's a very difficult field.
Yeah, and I think the key to like moving a lot of businesses forward in somewhat the same direction, somewhat at the same time, and then of course you need to have governmental support, regulatory support, and all those things. The key there is to actually it's the intentional effort over time. Someone has to speak out those words, set that strategy, set that vision, that goal, and start working with those value chains, because the mesh here is so interconnected, and the risk is always to, the first mover is sometimes punished
Yeah.
economically.
Yeah, definitely. And then, obviously, you have a long background, and you've been working on a lot of different industries and fields within this area. And then you ended up in Taravera a couple of years back. Is that correct?
Yes, Taravera, I think Taravera is, I think we can't move past my time in Tibber, because that
No.
was a little bit of a life-defining career move for me. It was almost like,
Yeah.
my two brain halves came together.
Yeah.
In a way, it's not just about using energy smarter, like from the rational standpoint, but also adding that, passion that I've always had, that entrepreneurial spirit. And it was about disrupting an entire industry and building something from scratch. Of course, with a fair dose of crazy into it, because that was a journey with, ups and downs and everything. But so And I learned so much also about when you're trying to actually, from a very honest standpoint, trying to change a system that has been working the same way for decades and decades and decades, how truly exhausting that can be. So, and that's also where I discovered truly the importance of data.
Yeah.
Not only like, okay, we have a set of metrics, we have a set of KPIs, or um, we have some data sets, and we use it in a smart way to become a little bit better, or do things a little bit differently. But truly, how essential it is, if you're trying to change something and you claim that you're doing this in a better way than it used to be done, how essentially important it is to have your data in order, and to be certain that you're looking at the right things and you're measuring the right things, and that you can also not just kind of underestimate that, because you have to communicate it as well, because we were talking to consumers in Tibber. And how do you translate something that used to be very complex, energy and electricity, and then translate it to something really simple and understandable? So that was also very challenging, but very, very, helpful in my own journey, because this is something that I've seen in Taravera as well. Taravera is a non-profit organization, a foundation, where we actually we develop unique data sets for organizations to help them make better decisions on sustainability. So it's not about self-assessments anymore. Enough with the self-assessments. They need to go. So it's about objective data, validated data. It's about what does research say about this? And this is something that I've seen because we've been living. One of the Terravera partners, they used to say to me that, okay, we've been living in the age of data collection. So we've collected a lot of data, we've produced a lot of data. So now it's time to think really carefully about, what are you going to use this data for? How will you use it? What would you like to achieve? So Terravera is a little bit my awakening era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like your learnings and experiences in Tipper was also maybe leading you towards really understanding. Obviously, I assume you obviously worked a lot with sustainability data in your previous roles as well, but then you really saw how valuable it is and how important it is to have right data and how you use that data both internally but also against your stakeholders. And I think Terravera is a really, really cool and an important organization, and that is giving so much value to the companies that are using it. So it's I think it's the future of how companies should be approaching their data handling and using, and it can uncover so many opportunities and also unlock, or resolve issues that you maybe don't even know that you had in the first place. So
Exactly. Yeah. And it's about, I think this is also something that I think more and more business leaders are more and more aware of this, that the fact that you need to both have equally, attention to detail and the data, but also focus on the system that you're actually a part of. So both the detailed approach and the holistic approach at the same time. Because what I saw in Tibber was that we could get far by talking to the consumer, because they are the ones with the power to change things. If you look at the household perspective, the way you use energy, as long as you have some enabling technology, and you have a certain interest and a fantastic app, of course, then we were able to get so far. But without also working to change that system that had been in place for so long, you can only get so far. It's about the regulations. It's about how things are organized, and really, this is also something that I've taken with me to Terravera, because I think there is much more awareness around these things now than it used to be. And, what can we actually achieve if we fully, embrace what it means to think and act in systems, but then based on quality data? It's that is what is truly groundbreaking about Terravera, is that it embraces the systems thinking and how you can actually model sustainability in a way. And you implement these models with high quality data, then you actually get a tool where you can simulate outcomes of your actions today in a much better way than we could when we were working with these generic data sets, and we were a little bit stumbling around blindfolded. thinking that we did something that was sustainable, but it was just very, very hard to document it.
And I also think what you're mentioning about the system thinking and, going away from, I feel like a lot of companies, at least looking back, have been very focusing on themselves and their own externalities, and not necessarily understanding, as you say, like their value chain and all of their stakeholders and all of their ecosystem, and how important that is to actually be able to make the necessary changes and also to unlock the opportunities that are there. So,
Yes, because I mean, that's next level. Like, what comes beyond this? You collect the data. If it's only for reporting purposes, then you have missed out on so many things, because true innovation and, where we are moving next, that is where the gold is, right? So if you use this data in a good way, then it's unlocking all these, the real reward here is, more profitable, more efficient, yeah, more humane business models going forward. And I think data is a really good helper on the way. But
absolutely.
you need to add that systems thinking or you won't get far.
And from my experience as well, and what I also see and hear from other peers, is that there are issues with quality data, and to both like understand and access them, but also to be able to model them in the right way. And yeah, as I mentioned, I have had some experience with working with Taravera in my previous job, where I think the insights we got were very valuable. And I think it's just, as I mentioned, you have obviously you need the data for maybe compliance purposes, etc. But in actuality, when you start doing these exercises, you will suddenly realize things that you didn't know, and that can actually a lot of low-hanging fruits that can improve your business quite easily. And we experienced that as well in Laudal, where we were focusing a lot on certain parts, like our sustainability efforts were very focused on what we believed based on our general reporting and general ESG data. And then when we started getting more real data and understanding the data better and modeling it in a new way, then we realized that there were so many low-hanging fruits that we could change so easily that could improve our customer experience and our profitability, but also reduce a lot of the costs on the environment. So I think there are so many interesting examples of how, if you use data correctly, it can lead to so many benefits for the company. And I can imagine you have a lot of good examples from your time in Taravera.
Yes, absolutely. And it's true what you say. It's intentional focus over time, because when you first start looking into the data and you start questioning it, does this reflect reality? And are these data good enough for us to make our decisions based on this data? Then all kinds of magic things start to happen. It's change and opportunities for change and opportunities for improvement is not only likely, it's inevitable. Because once you start working with it, you see so many things that you can and should change, and potentially change can be costly, yes, but the change can also be, incremental. Like just these small nudges that you can make, changing a little bit of your value chain within transport, or where you source energy, or it can be almost whatever. But then, applying the Taravera methodology, because that is also something, just start looking at data. It sounds a little bit simple, but applying that methodology that we have with intentionally kind of designing in a digital format these value chains so that you know exactly what you're looking at. This kind of describes your reality. And then you start collecting the sustainability data that applies to your company and not some generic industry standard or based on inaccessible research or research that is 5 years old or 10 years old, but really tailored data sets. Then it starts getting fun, because then you can see some potential tangible results from it. And I've heard Taravera partners, they often describe as you point out, that we think we have fairly good control of what we're doing and what we are looking at here. Sustainability, yes, I think we're in control of that. But once you start looking at it, then you see all these, there's an interconnectivity with other value chains, with there are so many layers of this. And I've heard from Taravera partners saying that after we started working with quality data and good modeling, so that we can actually simulate the outcomes of our actions, then our previous data, or the data that we used to rely on, look like napkin calculations. It's a little bit like reaching the next level, kind of. So, but I think that there is now a lot of focus. I see that also from Taravera, that partners that we have been working with over time, they have been so preoccupied with this reporting going on now to comply with the directive, that it's a little bit, what comes to mind is that, we should be spending some time on reporting, and also creating baselines for future reporting so that you can kind of identify improvements, etc., is super important. But reporting for compliance or reporting itself doesn't take you so far.
No. I like you've been using this phrase earlier with when the company finally has delivered their report, it's done, but in reality they're at the start line.
Yes. Congratulations, you now have reached square one, so now you can start the real work. No, but I think it's to make a comparison, because financial reporting, now it's a saying that sustainability reporting is going to be equally as important as financial reporting, which for CFOs, and that is just terrifying because it's with annual reporting and financial reporting, there's a lot of resources in the company going into financial reporting. And it's really important to communicate your numbers right, because, for legal purposes, for investors, for other stakeholders, it's very important that you have your numbers right. And now that society or lawmakers have said that sustainability data and sustainability reporting is going to be equally important, then of course that seems a bit terrifying. But it is about that intentional effort over time, focusing on creating the baseline, improving over time, And that goes with, both improving the data quality, but also improving, what we actually use these numbers for. Because once you've reported, then it's only a few months until you have to think about annual reporting again.
Yeah.
So you don't have much time to come up with targets, strategies, actions to improve.
Yeah.
So
And I feel like that's also one of the pitfalls that many companies are experiencing today. As you said, that, okay, they're doing the reporting, they're gathering the data, but do they actually use it for anything that creates value? And I think that's why, for a lot of companies, sustainability has become a hassle. It's a compliance measure that only, takes up a lot of cost and time, and it doesn't give them any value. And that's because they don't use the data correctly. And if they did, like with projects with Terravera, where companies actually use the data, they can actually unlock so many improvements. And that's when, okay, this is actually interesting. We need to improve these data. These are interesting. These create value for us. So I think that's one of the key kind of approaches that I think businesses need to take, is to make the teams around the organization understand and use the data, and then want the data, so that there is a motivation behind it as well. Because I understand when they don't use the data, or understand it, that it doesn't bring them any value and it's only a cost. So I think, yeah.
And I mean, we're all concerned that our efforts, should give some tangible and immediate results, preferably. And we've had Terravera partners actually, after, I don't know, 4 to 6 months of work, taking immediate actions on the new data sets that we have developed for them, and the models that we have developed together. We looked at steel. We looked at emissions from steel as a resource in production of some units in a company within oil and gas industry. And we kind of identified that there was a lot of the emissions coming from steel production in their value chain. And we kind of identified tangible ways for them to reduce the use of steel in their value chain, which kind of led to, on paper or within the model at least, when we simulated, could lead to, some 20-something% reduction of CO2, and also 20-something reduction of costs from making some changes in the production and within their own value chain. So that is the immediate tangible result. But then, as we've also experienced together with partners that we collaborated with in that project, climate advisors in Stavanger, they also helped out with strategy thinking, around these data. What do we do with these data? So they actually also helped them come up with also tangible ways to improve a lot of their operations. They've also worked in the leadership team, etc., etc. So all these other positive changes that are brought about because you now have some new knowledge about sustainability and how sustainability affects your costs, then it's just the start of a journey, so to speak.
Yeah. And suddenly everyone is is engaged and wants to have their data modeled, and
yeah. It's strange, isn't it? Once you talk about CO2 in combination with cost reduction, then it's more interesting. But I mean, that's the way it is. It's you have to you have to present it in a way that makes it reasonable and common sense to start working systematically with sustainability. Otherwise, you will lose people.
Yeah.
There's so much, there are so many other worthy things to focus on when you do business. So sustainability, just we need to speak the same language, so to speak. Yeah,
exactly. And then if we look more holistically around business models and how we need to rethink business models, because at least I believe that in order to really be able to address the challenges that we are facing, and also to unlock the opportunity and to create real sustainable business models that are profitable and that are serving the society within planetary boundaries. And I think that's really the goal. It is really dependent on not only looking at our operations, but to look at the entire business model to understand the totality of it, from how the company is organized, why it exists, what value it creates, how it's interacting with its customers, all of its stakeholders, the value chain. And here as well, I think data is also really important. And how do you see that the type of solutions that we're talking about now are also influencing not only the kind of concrete operations within a company, but also the more kind of strategic and the totality of the business model?
I think if you're talking about reshaping, truly reshaping business models, there's so much you can learn from companies. I mean, you have Ørsted, you have Patagonia, you have a lot of examples, from classical literature or, case studies on sustainability where you can gather some inspirations. And what they have done is, of course, Ørsted, I think, now they have like a 90% reduction of energy production from fossil fuel over to renewables, which is, just a monumental change in their business model. But is it really reshaping anything? I mean, and also Patagonia, which is somewhat of a sustainability brand, at least. They communicate about that a lot. It's still about, consumer behavior. And there's a lot of business models that are just very dependent on a certain human behavior or dependent on a system or a way of working. So we end up solving these problems by creating new ones, as I said, and we have all these rebound effects. So, I think that truly reshaping the business model, if we are really going to do that, we need different tools than what we are used to, because you can't look at old data and just try to come up with, making some small changes to a business model and then say that you have changed anything. So, for instance, what we did in Tibber was that, we said that we're not going to make any money on electricity consumption, which, at that time was a completely crazy concept, because that was what they had based, there was this really just blown out of proportions value chain on energy and electricity that existed. And a lot of businesses having their margins and creating products that was needed in this value chain. And we kind of completely turned that upside down, saying that we're going to provide consumers with electricity where they are actually just paying for the electricity. We're not going to take any margins on it. So but then still, the business model, you have to make money for something. So the business model was more about also providing then consumers with the smart technology needed to actually reduce your consumption, etc., etc. So disruptive in a way, yes, but still there is a system that you need to work within. So changing the energy industry, perhaps, over time we did that, but that system change just really takes a very, very long time, and it doesn't happen overnight. And you need to be, data absolutely plays a part in that. Because not only you have to be able to communicate about what you're doing, this is what we're trying to achieve because, hey, look at the data, what we're doing now is not sustainable. But then if you're going to show someone a more visionary future about something, then there's kind of more this how you model things. How can you actually show us something better based on this data? Because that is where the beauty is. If you can simulate this future that you're talking about, using data and not just kind of like fluffy words.
Yeah, exactly. And I've experienced that firsthand as well, how as soon as we were able to show the data and show the potential of a new business model, that's when you got people interested. And it's so interesting how, like in the case that I'm referring to now, we were looking at products that were sold in a linear manner, where you obviously, the customer bought the product and they owned the product, and it was a durable product that they could have for 20 years, but they might just use it 2 to 5 weeks a year, and the rest of the time it's just laying there. So then we started looking at, okay, what if we rented out this product instead, and then you could serve 20 additional people with the very same product.
Yes.
So in that way, you could actually increase the impact you had from people using that specific product. You could decrease the resource use, the emissions related to the service you provided, and you could also increase profitability because you get more paid for less resources.
Yep.
But obviously, there are challenges because of like the regulations, the infrastructure, and even like the financial models of the customers. Are they able to go from buying to renting or leasing or subscribing to something? So there are still challenges, but I think in this manner, like the importance of being able to show the data and show the potential and simulate it, as you say, is like fundamental to get people engaged and get them motivated. And yeah,
Absolutely. I think that, all business models should, you should do that exercise to do kind of the 2050 litmus test. If I did the same thing and a lot of other companies did the same thing in 2050, would that actually be sustainable, or would actually just, society be organized in a completely different way, so my product or service won't be useful anymore? Or so there's a lot of and I think also there's a little bit of a need to go back to the essentials a little bit, like, because there's a lot of businesses and business models that are actually just, as I said before, dependent on a certain human behavior. And if that is about consumerism, then we're probably on the wrong path anyway. So yeah, I like what you say about kind of, there are some things that are really just not essential. So perhaps we should base ourselves on renting instead of owning, borrowing, swapping, whatever you call it. Think more a little bit in a holistic manner, instead of just, this is something I need right now, so I just have to go to the store and buy it.
Definitely. And so I think we're now closing the end of the conversation. As we said, like, we could go on talking about this for hours, but I do have one last question that I wanted to ask you. And I think for those companies that are kind of just starting on this. They have their regulations that are they have their requirements towards them, and they're working towards compliance. So they're gathering data and they're reporting. So for a company that is not at a state where they have quality data and they don't use the data to actually create value, how would you recommend starting that journey? And who should be involved, and how should you go about? This is a big question, but if you could try to.
Yeah. I think what you have to acknowledge as a first anyway, that doesn't have anything to do with data at all. It has to do with how you think about change, because everybody wants change, but nobody wants to change anything. We would like to be perceived as a more sustainable company, but what do we have to do? Where do we have to go to get there? It's a little bit uncomfortable, perhaps. And so the realization that, if you want to change anything, you have to start. Action is key here. And action fosters attitude, so willingness to change. And I think that's because if you want to have all your employees on board, if you want to have the leadership team, if you want to have the board, perhaps this starts with the board even, so that you as a CEO or something, you have a board that is visionary around sustainability. Then you need to start within. So change starts within. Data, looking at the data is probably the best recommendation that I can give, because as I said before, once you start that intentional focus on the data, on the details, try to map out, how does this business actually work? How does our operations work? How does our value chain look like even? Because it's easy to forget a little bit as you go. What are we actually looking at here? There will be regulatory barriers, operational, yes, culturally, definitely. And that is usually, about communication. And if you have good quality data in place, then you're in a better place to talk about the need for change, why we need to do it, and what that can actually give us in terms of benefits. So data is a good place to start, but be intentional about it. It's not only about achieving this report, becoming compliant. Be a little bit more creative about what you can use this data for. Strategies, new products, new services, new, competitive advantage. You can attract better employees. It's so much when you first start having an intentional conversations and taking action on sustainability data. There are so many benefits to follow. And, have it on the agenda all the time. And not just as an item that we just rush through, but and try to label it a little bit differently from time to time, because it's if it's a fixed agenda item called sustainability, you're going to lose a lot of people on the way. I can promise you that. Because it's over time it is a concept that is just can be everything and nothing and in between. So try to label it a bit differently. Resource efficiency, operational efficiency, energy safety. It can be anything, really, but it's just sustainability in disguise.
Yeah.
So it's about improvement, basically, in all senses of the word. It's about improvement.
Yeah. I agree. Well, thank you so much, Elisabet. It has been very insightful discussion. So many good stories and examples, and thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me. As you said, we could go on and on, but yeah, hopefully some useful insights.
Absolutely. And hopefully we can continue this discussion at another time. I think we have a lot more to talk about.
Definitely.